Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome our audience to this recording for the International Chapter of Graduate Women in Science. I am Dr. Susan Fetics, and I am the International President and co-founder of the International Chapter of Graduate Women in Science, also known as GWIS. And this interview is part of the Global Voices of 2020 project. And this project is a multimedia undertaking wherein our chapter members submit different content expressing their experience of the pandemic in 2020. And we have such diversity in our members that when all these pieces are combined, it will be fabulous for all of us to learn and grow from this shared wisdom. So for today's content, it's December 1st, 2020. It's an interview with Dr. Gurjot Kaur. I'm in Dublin, Ireland. Now it's just about hitting 8 a.m. And Dr. Kaur is in India, so welcome. Dr. Kaur, as an introduction, she is an associate professor of pharmacology and toxicology at Shalini University in Solan, India. She has been a member of GWIS for 3 years, and she recently became a full member of Society of Toxicology, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, to start, in what discipline of science do you teach?
First of all, hi everyone. Thank you, Susan, for having me here. And it's a great pleasure. GWIS is like my go-to group, and it's an inspiration to see women doing great things. And I have to say, we never talk enough about them. So this is a great Global Voices project is really great for all of us. At the university, should I tell a little bit about my background or just right away with the discipline?
No, definitely go into your background. I love it.
So I'm Gurjot Kaur. I am basically from Delhi Height. I'm a Delhi Height, but now I live in Himachal Pradesh, which is at the foothill of Himalayas. It's a really great place to live, and therefore very good place to do teaching and research. Before that, I have postdoc in Germany and a PhD in Austria at very good universities there. I am a pharmacologist, so I work on pharmacology and toxicology, and my research areas are also about revolving around these two fields. So the first question was discipline of science. So this would be my discipline. I work in pharmacology and toxicology. Mhm.
Okay. And then how many classes were you teaching at the start of the pandemic?
So I am usually teaching undergraduates, postgraduates, and PhDs. And at that time, I was teaching one course for undergraduates and one course for masters.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yes.
How many students were in each class? So what was the size?
In undergraduates, we have like 80 to 90 students. And
Mm.
in postgraduate, at that time, I had 12 students. These were all from pharmacology, masters in pharmacology students.
So two very completely different experiences with the
Definitely,
sizes.
definitely. I mean, the university, Shalini University, had a very good online system. So we were already practicing quite a lot of things. So we were very lucky, I have to say. And the university itself made a lot of effort regarding putting everything online, not stopping with the education here. So our next semester also happened. So this is the second
Mhm.
semester we have been teaching online. And now I'm still teaching undergraduates. I'm teaching 2 undergraduate courses now, again about 80 to 90 students. And I'm also teaching master students, but now my load is a little bit more because I'm teaching research methodology, and I'm teaching for all the masters. So this is like 32 students.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
yes.
What did you find were the biggest challenges to continue teaching in the pandemic when you switched to online from in person?
I think the biggest challenge was because the system was very new, even if we had all the tools and a lot of learning, we had to do a lot of learning. Even then, some of the times it felt like I was talking to the computer, because I could not see my students, and I had not yet the idea that I could possibly, converse with them or through the public chat. So it was very difficult, and most of the time, I think the class started with, "Can you hear me?" And then they would answer me in the public chat, "Yes, ma'am, we can hear you." But some things could go wrong, and then, um, we wouldn't even realize that the students are not getting the streaming or anything. And even if the university wanted to record the lectures right away, they were not prepared, there was not enough data. So I think this was my biggest problem, especially because as a teacher, we modulate even the tone of our voice when we look at our student. And if we think, okay, my student is not really getting this, so I have to maybe, talk slowly, or maybe spend some more time here. And with the limited time that we were getting online, this was really not possible. So the university, when started out, rather than the 40-50 minutes that I would have for the class, I was getting only 20 minutes, because they didn't have
Oh,
the
wow.
enough storage, online storage and everything. Now we have a little bit better system, so the things are getting recorded, and the students can also look at them even when their network is not working, because it's a huge country. Many students are in the village where there's no network or very low network. My main problem was student teacher interaction. I really felt like I'm just talking to the screen. This was the hardest
Yeah,
thing to do.
it sounds like, the machine, the technical challenges were affecting the personal aspects.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, this was more the issue. It was not so difficult to work with the system, because the university made sure that we had some classes where we learned how to operate the system, how to start my class, how to. It was more these things that were affecting me. Yes.
Hmm. And then, yeah, from these challenges, what strengths did you see in yourself once you had some footing in this new way of teaching, this new way of working?
I think the about myself, I think I
Mhm.
got. I think I'm an expert in online teaching now. Um, I'm not at all afraid of talking online. All I, I would rather think that the biggest advantage is that I can take an online class anytime without worrying about where I'm sitting. There are many ways of, there's a way that I could even make this my background look a different color, and how
Yeah.
to modulate everything. Um, it's really good, because when I look at it this way, that even if we go back to the normal, classroom teaching, I could, if, for example, I'm not well or I'm traveling, because as scientists, we also have to travel, I could always record my lecture and my students could still see my lecture. They don't have to,
Mm,
miss classes, or I don't have to have a huge amount of load after coming back from a conference. I could just record the lecture and leave it to my students, and they can still see it. I still think the
mm.
biggest disadvantage of online teaching is the student teacher interaction, because I don't think that can, ever be, until unless
Oh,
they're also on
absolutely.
video call, and but it's still not uh, as good as classroom teaching. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I've been attending like neuroscience webinars, and the big conclusion from the neuroscientists, the psychologists, they say, this is great that we have Zoom and we can do this 2D interaction and we can still keep up even just with a simple phone call. But humanity has never survived because, you become the president or you make the most money or you have the most success. Humanity has always survived because of co-regulation, which is simply a fancy scientific word for relationships, that we need to have relationships. So this is a Band-Aid. This, we're fortunate with this pandemic, for one thing, that we at least have this technology that not only we can hear each other on like a telephone, but see each other like this. However, yes, it is a 2D screen and it absolutely does not replace in person.
Absolutely.
So, this is just a temporary fix for however long this is going to take. Well, it's already been almost a year now, and then until a vaccine and until the virus has calmed down. But that as a scientist, that made me feel better when I learned the scientific word for relationships is co-regulation, and then that's
Yeah.
what humanity will need to continue to survive after this. So we'll get back to
Yeah.
how it will
In
be in person. Yeah, reading facial expressions in person, and also feeling a person's energy. About talking and stuff, which is can be difficult to get through a 2D screen.
So in my class that I'm teaching right now, research methodology, I really have to teach them how to work through a paper and how to write a paper and how to do your thesis, right? Like how would you write a synopsis? How would you find out what is the idea you have to take forward? And this is a very interactive class. That was a challenge for me. That was really challenging, and I had to give them. But it worked out. I still couldn't see my students. We were still using public chat whenever I asked them. But I know that when they were in the class, I could see the development, and I could then, modulate myself accordingly. Okay, they did not get how to do the review of literature so well, but now I was limited on everything, so I had to make sure that they would submit an assignment that I would grade overnight, and then I would talk about it in the next morning with them.
Mm.
So this could still be done. It's not so bad, but I still think interaction is, something that the online teaching has to include. Maybe, with more network and everything that I can also see. When there are 12 students, it's still okay. But with 80 to
Yeah.
90 students, you cannot really do any interactive teaching. Then it's just
Yeah, it's too much.
information transmission and hoping that every student is getting this. That's difficult.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So then, when you found out, these strengths and these challenges within yourself, do you mind talking about some of the resources that you relied on for support? And for that, and example would be coworkers or families or even hobbies that you had that
Yeah.
would help kind of, de-stress.
When everything shut down, I think my father was the biggest source of everything for me. He was still here at that time. When I'm actually glad about that, because he also lives alone and I also live alone, and he's like 70 years old. And when this pandemic wave came and lockdown happened, he was visiting me. So he got shut down in my house, and I was really glad for that because I could really make sure that he was completely fine. But I would say it's the other way around. My father really made sure that I was fine. And when we started to work online, he was really a big support. He was really making sure that I had the quiet and the peace, and I could still do the work, because I was still writing grants. I have a COVID-19 grant too. So I was working as a researcher too, and I was also doing this online and making PowerPoint presentations. For some master courses, I still use the book many a times, because when you teach the student from the book, they can go home and look at the book and, relearn, remember whatever was discussed. So now I had to really make presentations for such courses too. So it was a huge amount of work in the starting, and he was right there for me, and that really helped me. And other than that, co-workers have been really great. Everybody has been supportive. So if we had some problem, like I couldn't take a class, or there was a schedule that the university would make, this I have to say I'm kind of proud of it, because I never thought that Shulini University could put through such a nice system where a lot of our worries were really taken away. As teachers, we were given a timetable, an online timetable. Right now, I don't know where my phone is. So we have an app on the phone too for the university, and I can open the app. Maybe I can show you. And here, uh, it looks like this. I think you can't see everything on it,
Mm.
but there's
Yeah, I
this
see.
my timetable, and when I click on it, every morning when I say that I'm at the university, I get this whole thing, how many classes I have and everything, and I can on my laptop I can just click on it and start my class. So this is amazing because we don't have to worry about Zoom and everything. In the starting, we had to take classes through different portals, and now we have a system. And the whole university has been working together, all the co-workers. Our dean has been very flexible about things. If he found out that somebody was ill, he would really make sure that please just rest and don't worry. So everybody was very supportive. It was a lot of work. I really have to say it was a different way of life altogether, because suddenly, it's different. You're at home and you have to be professional enough to take teaching, and even do research. But how does that work? It's difficult. I think it's difficult. So all the support really mattered. Like you just had to
Mm.
call the computer department here and say, I'm having this problem, how to solve it. And they would just get
Mm.
it. And in this way, it was, and I could even say, I cannot take a class today, I am not feeling well. So things like those were really permitted at the university. Um, and my father's been a real support. He's been really, I can't believe it. He's like 70 years old, but he has taken care of me. It's not I have taken care of him. He has been really there. And I got really stressed too because it was changing so much about myself in every way, you know, like sitting on my, in the starting, I did not really even have everything figured out, like where would I sit at in my room. So that was sort of, and then he made sure that the food and vegetables and everything, there was a delivery coming in for everything, which I couldn't have managed. I'm really bad at these things. And he managed everything, and he wouldn't even say like, Gurjot, now you need to take care of that.
Mm.
It was, yeah, I'm really
That's
amazed.
great. I mean,
Yeah.
it's exactly what you needed
It's
from when
exactly
this
what
all
I needed.
started.
Somebody to just support me while I was learning something new, and you know, and but
Hmm.
the university also, everybody was really, it was amazing. There was never like, no, this can't happen. They would give
Hmm.
you tries, and there were always these trainings going on. So they made sure that whatever new something new came up in the system, that we would get trained how to do it. So right now we are actually taking exams online. We're even taking exams through MCQs, and the exam starts when it is written in the exam timetable that 10:30 my exam would happen, and I'm able to start that exam, and the students are giving it on their computers or mobiles, even mobiles. uh, I mean, it's not a perfect system, but still, it we are able to evaluate a little bit how much the student is learning, and
Hmm.
that's better than nothing, right? It's
Oh no, I'm laughing because students taking their exams on their mobiles when it's just when I was a student, mobiles didn't exist. Mobiles were science fiction. So
Yeah, and we were not,
so it's
we
just
were not allowed to take the mobile into the class, but now they can. It's the system is made in a way that they can take the class on this, because a lot of students are in the villages, right? Low network connectivity. So we have to make sure that the class is in a certain wavelength that they are able to attend the class,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, no, I love the change. You know, it's like if that's what's happened so far in my scientific career, imagine what's going to happen in the next part. What's going to be going on in 20, 30 years, how different it'll be that now we can't imagine how technology can grow. So that's why it makes me laugh when I hear about what kids are doing. So that's great that there was so much
I
support
think
at home and
the key
professionally.
is flexibility. I think the key is flexibility here. I'm actually one of those who is very inflexible about my routine, about what I want to do. If I have three things on my mind, those are the three things I want to do today. So for people like me, it was very difficult in the starting, I think. People were like, no, I don't want to do this. Why should I do this? But the key is flexibility. Whoever is flexible as a teacher, as a researcher, is going to go really long way, because I don't think the pandemic is ending tomorrow. So
Mhm,
the real key here is be flexible, be accepting of the changes, and keep changing with them.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's true of science, scientists in general, because yes, 2020, is a pandemic that's going into 2021, but who knows what the next big thing will be. I was in New York on September 11th trying to get to my job in the lab in the morning, just like everybody else was. And yeah, obviously things didn't go as they should have that day, even though I was not involved with the Twin Towers. But I mean, I was still in Manhattan. So just as a scientist, having your routine day to day, which we must have that discipline in order to get the work done, in order to analyze the data, in order to push through long shifts where you only have a certain amount of time to collect, data on activity or something, because it's a biological and it won't be active in a few hours. And if you're hungry, you just have to ignore it. So we need that discipline and we need that structure to push through. But you're right, at the same time, we need that flexibility that when something larger than us happens, whether it's localized, like a September 11th event in New York, or a global pandemic as this, we need to adjust accordingly, which can be a bit tricky with the rigidness we keep to ourselves in order to get things done. Because we know as scientists, if we don't get things done, nobody will get them done. So we need to push through and take care of it. So definitely that is something that's good to learn about yourself. So then as far as going back to the teaching, how did this change in teaching and even this flexibility you've had to learn, how did it affect other aspects of your work responsibilities? For example, your research?
Um, lot has changed. I think when it comes to teaching, I think I'm still doing the same amount of teaching. It looks like that my hours of teaching have decreased because of this online platform and everything, but it's not exactly correct, because I still have to work a lot making those presentations, making sure that my students are understanding, designing assignments that they now can do at their end, rather than the way it was before, that they could really ask me questions. Um, so making a lot of presentations and everything, but I think that's good for me, because now I'm getting better and better at making these
Mm,
presentation for students, and understanding that undergraduate needs a different kind of strategy, more teacher focused strategy, because I'm going to teach like 80 to 90 students, right? And entertaining questions from every one of them every day can be very difficult in online teaching, especially when they're in
mm,
the class and they ask you a few questions. This is still okay. All of them are listening to it, right? But for the master's students, it's still tricky, because how to do the student teacher interaction is a big problem. They are at a stage of their life when they are really going to master something. um, I think it would really help if something like Zoom is installed for master student class, where they are also able to talk to me directly and I'm able to see them and they are able to see me, and some things have to be communicated. Um, there I had to again make a lot of slides. I think this has been a really one of the tricky things. Uh, from the point of view of work, I think all researchers would agree that any kind of experimental work had to be stopped. So I think we all were a little bit worried, or maybe more worried than little. Um, my PhD students couldn't really work. I was very lucky because we got a grant on in silico work, right?
Mm,
So we still had one, you know, project going where we could all access online resources and we could work. So this was molecular dynamics and molecular docking. So we could still work on. Um, and I had to shift my lab from experimental work to in silico because while doing this project, we realized that I realized as a teacher, as a guide, that if my students have to pass, and have to get a degree. For example, my master students who should get a degree in the next year, then they must have some projects which they can do right now. And as a researcher, I could see that the COVID pandemic is not going away, like not today, not in 3 months, right? So I decided to give them also some in silico projects, so bioinformatic based projects. And I think this was the big change in, taking care of the
mm,
student. From the point of view of work responsibilities, I am secretary of a few boards at the university, at the School of Pharmaceutical Sciences. Luckily, that could be conducted online through Zoom. So the meetings could be conducted online, and that was okay. Now we are actually coming to the university. Like right now, I'm at the university, but we keep our safe distance from each other. And I'm in my cabin, and nobody else is allowed to come into my cabin. But it works. So slowly, everything is coming around. People are learning how to keep their social distance, and we are now starting to, work at the university and get back to the normal. Uh, Trying.
mm.
There are no students here, and it will never be normal till they come back. And it's always nice to have students around. But I don't know. I mean, the day they come back, there's going to be hysteria maybe because 80
Mm.
to 90 students in every class, 400 students plus 500 almost students will be running around these corridors. I mean, I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
A
I
little.
think we'll have to adjust back into when life goes back to normal and we don't
uh,
have to be so socially distant and keep physical distance
did
from
this
each
answer
other.
your question? Did you get the answer? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yes, because how did it affect your other responsibilities? You were talking about the research. And then, yeah, on the bend of finishing this up, what qualities would you continue to rely on that you learned during the pandemic, but that you'll use once the pandemic has passed and we are back into normal? Like what, you can talk about what strengths do you have, or just, yeah, the flexibility, or a new topic, but things that you wouldn't have had, qualities that you didn't know you would have obtained and kept for yourself beyond the pandemic.
I think the first thing I will really keep is recording my lectures online, because I think that really helps the students. Yes, classroom teaching is very good, very interactive. But when the students can hear my lecture again, because it's very hard for a student to also remember everything their teacher has been talking about, especially the undergraduates. Masters have to really put in efforts in understanding everything, right? So they should be going back to the books. But the undergraduates, they have a lot of courses. So if my lecture is recorded online and it's available to them, they can always go back and see what was ma'am saying about this, and then they can, go and get the book and try to find out. So that I really want to keep. Another thing I really want to keep, if I can, is the flexibility. I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but I would like to be flexible in the sense that whenever I can't take their class, that I'm able to take it online and shift back. So offline, online, every mode that I'm able to, I don't want to completely lose this mode of online teaching, but because it is beneficial. And I think, for example, nowadays there are international teachers, right? These courses have come up, certification courses too, and other kinds of courses. People are using YouTube to teach people. And for example, there is somebody sitting in Japan who wants to learn something which I am the expert in, right? So if there is an online course about that, that they can also access it. I think that is a huge, um, really huge advantage of going online. And I think a lot of teachers will benefit from this in the longer run. We might not feel like this because it's a lot of change for many people, but we are going to become more globalized. Right now, it feels like no, we are just going to stay here because of the pandemic, but people are going to know me, for example, in Japan too, because I'll be teaching online, and my lectures would be available, like not just a YouTube lecture, but a lecture series, right? So a person who is an expert in a certain field could really make a lecture series. And I think the universities have been trying to do this for a long time. I still remember like 4 or 5 years ago when I was in University of Constance, Germany, they had this always on their agenda that they should have some online courses going on. Even at Shulini they are talking about, and many other universities. So now is the chance for these universities to really put this idea through, so students can, doesn't matter where they are, they can still join and they could still get a grade for it, right?
Mhm.
And they could show it that I got I did a course for toxicology from University of Constance, and I got a grade for it because it was a university course, and so I could adjust it in my curriculum at my university. This is a huge chance for universities to do this, and I would really not like to let this go. I would like to keep certain aspects of being online. And in this sense, this was really, I think this was amazing, going from not being able to adjust to it to really learning it. And really, one of the things that drove me was the student expectation, because many of my students in the starting, they would call me, they would ask me, ma'am, when is the class? Because if we were worried, they were also worried and
Mhm.
anxious, I guess. So then I would make sure, okay, the class happened, and then I made sure that I would ask them back, like, did you understand it, right? And so modulating the lecture in the sense, and slowly going on to, okay, now I'm getting hang of giving a PowerPoint presentation to my student, even if they are not visible, right? Now
Mhm.
I should go on to make some assignments. So now I should go for the student teacher interaction. How do I include this in my course? It's
Yeah.
it was learning phase. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. No, and that's, the idea of this globalization of science and connecting internationally. That's part of the foundation of the international chapter of Graduate Women in Science. I'm one of the founding members, and the idea was launched in 2012, but the actual chapter was established in 2013. So back then we were doing Skype meetings to try and connect everybody, and our newsletter, and keeping up with the website, and we had our Facebook page. That this idea that you can learn from people across the globe, back then it was tricky. People really had to think over time about the time difference, scheduling everything. Whereas now it's just so common, as you're saying, you're in India, somebody is in Japan, and it's so now it's second nature to just assume, of course, there's going to be a time difference, and let's see what it is that you can learn. But then it's also great when you're talking about the recording and how you can have that on for archiving, which again, for some reason, that I'm having flashbacks of my own time being a student. I remember I never did this, but other students would bring a tape recorder, like for organic chemistry or for the really hard stuff. They would sit there with a tape recorder, which I never bothered because I was just taking notes. But same thing. I mean, I guess in their own way, they were ahead of their time, archiving archiving the talk for the exams to be able to understand. And it was, it wasn't even a consideration back then. It was perfectly fine to do for people to do it on their own. So I guess, that's how it was done years ago, the innovation at the time. And now today, you can record it yourself and then put it on a public YouTube channel. And then, yeah, it's for everyone to see. So again, interesting to see how we need that flexibility and how things keep evolving and changing. But then now to wrap up, yeah, it's December. So what's the weather like over there? Is it warm?
It's really nice. I had to, close this. I mean, it's not really warm, but every afternoon we have a lot of sun. So
Mm.
it's in the mountains. So we get a lot of sun, but in the evenings it gets really cold here. So some nights it even reaches like 2 to 3 degrees. So you have to be really
Yeah.
packed in. Um, but that's Solon. It's a really nice weather here all year round.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, because imagine it's hitting December now. So is there going to be a winter break or something where there's a holiday and then you will restart, the school year in January?
Yeah, we usually have like 2 weeks off at the end of the year near Christmas time, where we can rest and the students can also, take a break. And then we start again in mid of January with the student session.
So during the break, will you have to continue working or will you actually decompress and relax and de-stress, from the crazy? I mean, it's been since March, so essentially 9, 10 months of this.
Yeah. So we even teachers we take like 2 weeks off, but the students get a little longer, uh, and then I have to be back to research because in that time when there's no student, no
Mm.
classes, you can really work on a lot of like research ideas, projects, papers, anything that needs your time. Uh, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I understand. I remember spring break was always a nice time. The kids can go away, and you can just get so much work done. Even if you consider it 10 days, meeting the spring break, but also including the 2 weekends. It could be 10 solid days of getting a lot of work done. So sometimes it is nice to get that jump start
Yeah.
before the students return. Well, hopefully at least you get a break, you get to relax and unwind with family and stay at home and rest, because also to adjust to how this will continue next
I
year,
actually
until we.
forgot to mention something. So
Hmm?
1 month ago, I got myself a small puppy, you know,
Ah,
and I have to say that she has really de-stressed me of every possible stress in my life. She is the apple of my eye, and I've been anxious today because I can't see her, and but maybe that's also something I want to say is a support for me till this shutdown lockdown goes on. um,
oh,
it's
absolutely. What kind of dog is it?
I went for an Indian stray. So because it's winter coming here, and these dogs they just die because it's so cold
Mm.
outside. So I was lucky. I saw her and she was so cute and lovely, and she just came to me, and I just couldn't stop. Like myself, and I have had a lot of help, of course, from my father, from my friends who have pets of their own, and they have told me how to take care of her. And I have to say, she's the smartest dog ever. Like I've never seen such smartness. You know, she's so smart and so cute. Both things at the same time. And I made sure that it was a she that I took. You know, I said no, I'm going for a girl.
What's her name?
Chiku.
Chiku's the
Chiku is
smartest dog in
Chiku
India.
is actually Chiku is the name of a fruit here. So she has this, this area is dark, and she looks like a fruit. This fruit, Chiku. So I saw her and I was like Chiku.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like it was meant to be because, yeah, absolutely. Pets, because sometimes I've heard them called fur babies. They can absolutely help. You know, they're so excited to see you when you walk in the door. You can't get that sometimes from a human partner. So it can be nice to see such joy and such innocent joy and
Such
excitement.
frankness, right? Such frankness about what I like and I don't like, and I adore you and I'm angry at you. Such frankness in the behavior. That's amazing. That's really something.
Well, it's a good thing that you rescued her for the winter coming in, and then you have some lovely company to keep you
Again,
smiling at
I'm
home.
not sure that I rescued her. I think she rescued me.
Yeah, that's absolutely one way to put it, because I had a rescue dog during my PhD, and it was actually during a really rough time when I was going through my qualifiers, and I had been looking for a dog for a few months. And when I adopted her, because it just was the right fit, she was a disaster and I was a disaster. And if I had failed my qualifiers, I was going to lose my salary. And even I said to myself, this is, it's against all logic, because if I lose my salary and get kicked out of the program because I can't pass my qualifiers, now I have two mouths to feed,
Yeah,
not just one, but two. But I don't know, because of her, I passed. So definitely she was a big help. As much as she had her anxiety issues and everything, absolutely, that was she lit up my life for that period of time, because they just, especially rescue dogs, because they come from such harsh backgrounds
yeah,
that all dogs can appreciate, but rescue dogs really appreciate and teach you a lot about yourself. It's a big mirror and a big reflection, and it helps. So that's great you have that support system.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, definitely thank you for taking the time to do the interview. So let me leave this, and thanks to everybody for listening, and check out our other content that we have for our Global Voices project. And let me end this now.